was 16, and his life was a constant performance. Not on a stage with a velvet curtain, but in the glaring fluorescent light of the high school hallway and the cold blue light of his phone screen. His world, his every decision, was dominated by what he called the audience. The audience was everywhere. It was in the deafening silence after he posted a new photo, waiting for the first like. It was in the fleeting glance of the popular kids in the cafeteria. It was in the constant internal debate before he chose an outfit, sent a text, or even cracked a joke. He never saw them, these millions of phantom eyes, but he felt their weight constantly, a silent, eternal jury judging his every move. This phantom audience dictated his entire personality. He was funny because the audience liked humor. He feigned indifference to things he secretly cared about because the audience valued an air of coolness. He got the right grades, wore the right brands, and spoke the right slang. But every choice was a careful calculation, a strategic move to avoid the one thing he feared most: the digital silence of disapproval, the empty notification tray that screamed, "You're not good enough." This immense pressure was like a physical spotlight, harsh and cold. It didn't illuminate his talents, it exposed what he perceived as his flaws. He felt like a bug under a magnifying glass, every imperfection magnified, constantly scrutinized. The light wasn't for his benefit, it was his prison. And in this prison, he performed his life away, hoping for a round of applause that never came. He never realized the truth, the simple, devastating truth. The audience was not real. It was a projection, a collective echo of every fear, every insecurity, every doubt he had ever harbored about himself. The millions of phantom eyes were all just variations of one single relentless critic, his own inner voice. He had built the stadium, filled the seats, and turned the spotlight on himself. The illusion shattered one afternoon. He posted a drawing he was truly proud of, a raw, messy, honest piece of his soul captured on paper. He held his breath and waited. The minutes stretched into hours. The notification counter remained stubbornly at 0. The silence was absolute. And in that silence, he didn't just feel ignored. He felt the profound emptiness of the entire concept of the audience. They weren't just silent. They had never cared. They had never even been there. The fear of judgment was so powerful that his mind had manufactured millions of spectators to justify his self-censorship. The stage was empty, the seats were vacant, but the spotlight was still on, and he was the one holding the plug. He finally realized that the only person who had ever truly judged him, the only one who had ever held him back, was the one writing the script for this imaginary audience, himself. He was the playwright, the lead actor, and the sole, relentless critic of his own show. His first act of rebellion was small, almost unnoticeable. He changed his profile picture to a photo of that messy, unliked drawing. He didn't check for likes. He didn't scroll for comments. He just did it. And the world didn't end. The audience didn't clap. They didn't boo. They did nothing, because they weren't there. Freedom wasn't instant, of course. The phantom eyes still watched from the shadows of his mind. But now, he could talk back. "Your opinion is noted," he would whisper to the darkness. "But my performance is for an audience of one." He started drawing just for himself. At first, he was terrible. The phantom critic in his head screamed, "Loser! Failure! Look at that awful line!" But Ethan would simply reply, "The audience of one finds joy in the process." He began to live not for the roar of an imaginary crowd, but for the small, quiet approval of his inner self. The feeling of the pencil on paper, the satisfaction of finishing a piece, good or bad, that became his reward. The moment he stopped performing for the phantom audience, something fundamental shifted. The harsh, cold blue light of the phone, the one that had held him captive, began to change. It softened. It warmed. It became a gentle internal glow. The spotlight wasn't a prison anymore. It was a lamp. illuminating his own path forward, a path he chose for himself. The greatest freedom we can ever experience is the realization that we are already free. The cage was never locked from the outside. The key was always in our pocket. It's the courage to look at the screen, at the world, and see the truth. They aren't watching you. Your life is not a public performance to be rated and reviewed. It is a private masterpiece, a work in progress, beautifully imperfect. So stop living for the applause of a phantom audience. Start living for the quiet, deep satisfaction of the audience of one. The courage to be yourself is often the courage to feel alone in a crowded room. But in that solitude, you find the only true connection that matters, the connection to your own soul. Stop seeking external validation. They aren't watching you. They're all too busy worrying about their own phantom audience. The only judge you ever need to satisfy is the one you see in the mirror each morning. Make that person proud. If this story planted a seed of thought in your mind, subscribe to Soulseed Narratives for more tales that can help change your perspective. Share this message, and let's plant the seeds of self-acceptance together. Thank you for watching.